What's up, everybody? It's Alex from Heavy New York. We are back at the Bat Cave at Brooklyn Bazaar, and we are here with Judiciary. Thank you so much for your time today, man.
Thank you for asking me to do this.
Yeah, it's so awesome to have you here. Your newest record is Surface Noise, which came out earlier this year. Do you just want to give like a rundown on how the making of this record was, the recording, mixing, all that fun stuff?
Yeah, so pretty much we were writing it for like about a year before we recorded it. When we went and recorded it with Taylor Young, who plays in Twitching Tongues, Nails. He's done like your favorite hardcore release, you name it. Like he's mixed it. He mixed like a few of our old stuff, or our old releases, like our EP, The Axis of Equality, The Split with Mortality Rate. So we went with him to do the whole thing. Yeah. So he produced it, and it was like we went in for a week. He fucking killed it. He like engineered the shit out of it, and then we sent it to Arthur Ritzk, who did the mixing and mastering, and he's done like Cavalera Conspiracy, fucking I think he had a hand in the Code Orange record.
Wow.
He's done all the Power Trip stuff, so it was like a no-brainer to do that with him. And yeah, it was just like it was kind of a long experience, but I think all that length was needed.
Yeah.
To make it what it was. So.
Awesome. You mentioned that you worked with Taylor from Twitching Tongues, and which I actually interviewed him last year.
Oh, sick.
But like I'd imagine working with somebody like that who is actively in a band, two really good bands, that allowed him to maybe bring some extra materials into Judiciary. Right?
Oh, absolutely. Like we went in, like when we asked him to produce it, we went in with the mentality of like, he has valid input on literally every instrument because he plays drums and nails, which is fucked up pretty much. Like, can I say that?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Which is fucked up. And then guitar and Twitching Tongues, he's like insane in that band. And then he also does vocals in a band that called Disgrace. I don't know if you ever listened to it. It's fucking insane. So it was like
the Dave Grohl of hardcore.
Yeah, exactly. He does it all. So it was like he like helped us with like some song structure, some riffs. Kind of told me like, hey, you could do better, which like you need that in somebody who's like helping you do a record, obviously, because sometimes you get so caught up in your songs that like you don't hear what somebody else might hear.
Yeah,
so
definitely. One thing I was curious about is also with this record, you've done some collaborations with it, such as Knocked Loose and God's Hate, which I find really unique because normally it's like featuring the singer of Knocked Loose or featuring, this guy from God's Hate. I'd imagine that collaborating with other artists like that did maybe like that expand the sound a little bit too of Judiciary?
I think in a way, I think that Brian from Knocked and Brody from God's Hate like brought their own style to the table, and we put like on like Spotify and everything like crediting Knocked Loose and God's Hate because like we want like anybody who doesn't know who God's Hate is, but like we come up on the radio, be like, oh, who's that guy with the crazy ass voice at like 2 minutes in? Yeah. So like we want to link them so they can go listen to God's Hate. Obviously, Knocked Loose, a lot of people know them, but some people might not. So, but yeah, no, like I think that they kind of helped bring something really cool to the table, and I think they kind of bring their own flavor to those songs that they're on.
Awesome. Now, being a vocalist, do you need to hear music in order to come up with lyrics, or is there ever a time where like a concept can maybe help shape the outcome of the actual sound?
For me, I like having the song like written first, but there are times that like, I'll wake up in cold sweat in the middle of the night and go, like this is it, and like I'll like write something down in my phone, like a line that I might like or something like that, and then once the song's in front of me, I'll try to structure it around that line or that idea or that concept or whatever like that. But personally, I like having it in front of me so that way I can structure it to the song to make it kind of feel more like that song.
Yeah, nothing could be more heartbreaking than having like the best lyrics and they like just go one or two syllables over the actual arrangement.
Exactly, and I get like kind of married to my lyrics sometimes, so it's like... it makes me feel like I want to throw everything out sometimes. But.
Yeah. Do you like to leave the lyrics open to interpretation, or like do you try to maybe engage the listener into what you are trying to say?
I think I try to keep it in the middle. I think that there's a lot of stuff that I write and a lot of other artists write that it's like it can mean several different things. Obviously, I know the time and place where I was at when I wrote lyrics, but. If somebody came up and asked, like, what does that mean to you? Like, I'm not gonna like say no or to that or anything like that. So I would give my own interpretation, but I also like hearing like other people's translation of what my thoughts were to that song.
Definitely, definitely. Now, you've had a fairly busy year in terms of touring with many different bands, but also, like, you know, you've toured with, like, hardcore bands, but you've toured with, like, deathcore bands like the Acacia Strain, but, you know, you're on, like, a tour right now with Gatecreeper and Exhumed and Necroc, which is, like, straight-up death metal. Have you noticed maybe, like, a different reaction to your music depending on, like, the tour packages you've been on?
Yeah, absolutely. Because obviously different crowds sing a different song and dance kind of thing. So, like, with the Acacia Strain, obviously, like, their fans are, like, not very used to just, like, a hardcore, more crossover-y kind of sound, if you will. So, like, with that tour and this tour, it's been a lot of, like, beginning of the set, they'll kind of, like, listen and bob their head, and then they'll kind of, like, translate that into their own reaction. This tour, it's like, you know, people will start headbanging a little bit more, which is cool. You know, that tour was like people started moshing a little bit more.
Crowd killing.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, it's a different vibe for us than just like a normal hardcore show, but that's obviously what we want. Like, because, you know, you can't play to the same, like, few people every time and expect to, you know, keep doing that for years. But I like getting in front of new people too, and you know, everybody for the most part has been like really cool and welcoming to us this tour, and welcoming us into like their scene and everything like that. So it's been sick.
Yeah, I almost could see you going on tour with, like, you know, a band like Code Orange or Nails, but I could also see you on a tour like a death metal tour like the Gatecreeper, and then maybe something like Napalm Death or something like that. You know what I mean?
That would be sick. I would love that.
Yeah. Now, labeling yourselves a hardcore band, you know, I've interviewed Roger Merritt from Agnostic Front, but I've also interviewed Twitching Tongues, and, you know, I've talked with a lot of artists who would be like, who go under the category hardcore, but you know, the European use of the word, like, I always feel like, do you think hardcore is about the sound, or is it about, like, the image, or is it about, like, the message? Like, to you, what makes something hardcore?
I think it's a mix between the mindset and the mentality and the sound. So I think that the mindset and the mentality is a big part of it. It's like, you know, everything's DIY. Nothing's going to get handed to you. You kind of have to go head first into everything that you do, and you kind of got to keep integrity and keep what you feel attached to it and have a message to it. I feel like that's what, you know, hardcore bands like kind of represented, especially with like bands like Agnostic Front. Like when they started this shit, like they were like, you know, really attaching themselves to a certain message. And then sound wise, obviously, since there is like a culture of hardcore and there's a history of it, I think that like if you're going to call yourself a hardcore band, obviously you should have some sort of like relative sound to attach yourself to that genre. You
Don't sound like Dream Theater and then call yourself a hardcore band.
Yeah, exactly. But like I think a bunch of it is just mentality and how you carry yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I feel like hardcore music also, like seeing it live, like, you know, it thrives off of crowd interaction and stage presence and all that. So for you, is there a similar energy that you put into the studio as you do in your live presence, or is it like a completely separate game altogether?
I think that it's kind of similar in a way, because when I'm recording, I kind of like, you know, to get like it's aggressive music, and you gotta be aggressive to get that sound out. So it's like, you know, I am kind of like tensing up at the microphone. I look like I'm about to square up to it, kind of thing. But I'm not like in character the whole time. You know what I mean? As weird as that sounds. But like I think that recording, like you kind of have to bring some of that stage ready to go mentality when you're saying something super aggressive or yelling it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well,
obviously, like when you're doing it for hours, it gets tiring. But like, you know, you got to do what you got to do to get the sound that you want.
Yeah, and I'd imagine that practicing that in the like studio or in the vocal booth prepares you for how you are going to execute it live.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and it kind of eases you into the strenuous like nature of like the new songs that you're doing. Because I feel like every time that we go into the studio, I kind of put myself through like a new kind of hell. Like I'll put like a song where like I don't breathe for too long or something like that. So you kind of got to like adjust to that and find your like little pockets and everything like that. I have asthma too, which makes it even harder.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Then you should collaborate with, I think, Jonathan Davis or something like that.
That'd be sick. I'd be cool with that.
Yeah. And the final question I wanted to ask you is actually, because I talked about it before we started rolling, but, earlier this year I interviewed Kublai Khan, I interviewed Power Trip, I interviewed Creeping Death, I interviewed, like a lot of those Texas hardcore bands. It seems like there's a really prevalent scene happening there right now at the moment. Is it like there has to be a great community to cut your teeth in if you want to start a hardcore band at Texas nowadays, right?
Yeah, I think that right now, like the crop of bands that we have, I think that there's more bands that are apt to put in the elbow grease and like work to get to touring and like doing like bigger stuff like Creeping Death. Like us and Creeping Death kind of like came up like at the same time. We've toured with them a few times. Those guys are like our best friends. They're kind of like going off into like another path. So I mean, obviously, so is Creeping Death. We're all different bands, but like they're putting that work in. Power Trip, oh my god, like you can't mistake that band.
Yeah.
So like I think that Texas has like a solid base of like support for sure, because I think that with bands like Power Trip coming up and like older bands like Iron Age, like kind of setting the tone for what the Texas sound is. I think that there's like kind of a reputation to uphold there.
And Kublai Khan, I feel like, is really using the Texas thing as a calling card almost.
Oh, yeah. They got it in their name, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
Those guys are insane, too. Like, they've been working hard as hell for so long, and, like, I'm super proud that, they represent Texas. I'm super glad that I can call those guys my friends now. So that's really cool.
That's awesome.
We come from, West Texas, which like there's not much going on there. We're from a city called Lubbock, and that's like 5 hours away from any of the big cities. So it's like a completely different world, but like we still get that residual support from like the Dallas scene, the San Antonio scene, and everything like that.
Yeah.
So
I mean, in the end, I think it's just Texas in general.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I don't want to mess with anybody, whether they're from San Antonio, Austin, Houston, wherever.
Yeah.
So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time today. Is there just anything else you would like to promote for Judiciary?
We're playing FYA Fest in Tampa, Florida, January 4th and 5th. Then we're playing LDB Fest in Louisville, Kentucky. I think that is February 4th and 5th. I might be wrong. Sorry, Ryan and Alex, if you're listening to this, if I got that wrong. But that is what we have planned for right now. We got some more stuff in the works that I can't really say right now.
Yeah.
But for now, that's it. And, catch us on the rest of this tour with Gatecreeper, Exhumed, and Necrot, because it's fucking sick.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, brother.
Thank you.
Everybody, we are here with Judiciary. Be sure to pick up Surface Noise if you haven't already. This is Alex from Heavy New York. We'll see you next time.